we go. Three, two, one, and we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in to another segment of Crypto World Radio. My name is Wabi. I do these every day, Monday through Sunday, and we host everyone from community members, founders, people in VC. We're here to cover all things financial markets, and we hope you enjoy the episode for today. If you guys did not know, we just announced a trading competition with our sponsor, being X. So feel free to check out the pinned tweet on the Because Bitcoin Twitter page and, have fun with that. If you enjoy trading on an exchange where you can trade spot stocks and spot crypto, feel free to have fun with that. Some more exciting stuff is going to be developing over the next few weeks when it pertains to that. And if you guys want to join a Discord where you have access to things like Nansen and Glassnode and also High Block, feel free to check out our Discord. We do have premium channels when it pertains to that if you're interested in any of those things. And today we're here joined by our boy Field Payne and also Avocado Toast with our special guest Jay Japonetta and also his associate Decentral Will. And we're here to just talk about all things Cosmos. If anyone in the crowd wants to come up and join in on the conversation, feel free to do so. Just click that request button and I'll bring you right up. And as a reminder, 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded, it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. And you can also catch up with all of our spaces on our YouTube channel as well. And this covers Market Check, which is our morning show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with Max and our analysts, Will and Tommy. And then we have Market Talk with Carter, and he covers all things macroeconomic news and data pertaining to the U.S. equity markets. So with that being said, thank you for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful stay here. And without further ado, let's get the road. Hold on. Let's get the show on the road. So, Jay, what's going on, bro? How you feeling today, brother?
Yeah, Jim, to everyone. Good morning. It's also morning for me. I'm feeling much better than yesterday. I shared with King Wabi that I wasn't feeling that well yesterday, but I feel better today. I hope everyone is also feeling better. My prayers go to the affected communities in the earthquake in Turkey. So if anyone is from there, I hope you're doing better after that quake. I know it was felt across different countries as well. Just excited to sort of talk about DeFi Cosmos, and also the project I'm helping build. That's why our founder is actually here, Will Stahl. And yeah, we're excited to share more about the space.
Perfect, man. It's good to have you up here. Will, how are you doing today, my man?
Doing good, doing good. Honestly, just been so crazy busy lately. Like the stuff that we're working on in our project has been quite the grind recently. We've had a very I would say busy January so far. We've hit this year pretty hard. So honestly, this is kind of I always enjoy stuff like this. It's like a chance to just kick back and talk about some of my favorite topics, economics, crypto, all that jazz. So looking forward to hanging out a little bit. Obviously would love to just let people know about what we're working on. But yeah, it's nice to meet you as well. I don't
No
believe we've
problem,
talked
man.
before.
No problem, dude. It's good to have you up here, and you're free to welcome our spaces at any moment. I'll always bring you up, and we'll talk some shop. Payne, how are you doing today, my man?
Doing pretty good, man. Ready to talk some DeFi, just hanging out.
That's what I'm talking about. Avocado, how are you doing today, brother?
Hey, Wabi. Good. Just continuing to watch these markets in amazement at how resilient everything is. So, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All right, so talking about resiliency, I guess we can talk about the first thing when it pertains to Cosmos. Hold on, give me 1 second, guys. Okay. All right. Sorry, fellas, I just got home right now. Just going to talk outside. But yeah, since we're talking about resiliency, you had mentioned avocado. I guess we can start off talking about how the Cosmos chain itself did not falter and continued to process transactions, and its DeFi was perfectly normal as far as Osmosis chain is concerned when UST had depegged. So I guess we can talk about that. Jay, were you involved within Cosmos during the Terra collapse and prior to that?
Yeah, I was like I consider myself like sort of a Luna OG. I got into Luna like pretty early. I would say like around DeFi summer, maybe late 2020. I had a full-time job then, so I wasn't really sharing a lot on Twitter. But yeah, I think for the most part I've been an active community member of I actually found Cosmos Atom first before I encountered Terra or Luna. I think at the time it was late 2020. I'm not sure if you remember it. There were just I think close to 2,000 to 3,000 cryptocurrencies listed on either CoinGecko and CoinMarket, and I remember like I went through all the. I wasn't here in the space in 2017, 2018, so I felt like I missed that opportunity in a sense. And so I went through like I think the 2,300 tokens that were listed on CoinGecko and Coin Market Cap, and I basically narrowed down. Even as early as then, I was really bullish on the Cosmos ecosystem. I learned about IBC, and I saw the roadmap. But yeah, I wasn't really part of any protocol or project. I think for the 18 months, or less than 2 years that I was really involved within the Terra Echo. I was mostly like an active community member, especially when I started really talking about it. Yeah, I think my following, just by saying Luna, it was funny because I joke with my friends that I just by saying Luna, I think my Twitter following grew from I think around 4,000 to 13,000 or 12,000. But yeah, I was very active in the community. But I feel very fortunate now, to be part of like a project with Will. Um, I really believe in like the vision of Cosmos, which is like internet of blockchains, or basically like really a multi-chain world. I do think it's the same thing with the metaverse or the multiverse. I do think that it I think as a last point, I do think like human nature, even when you look at the world today, I mentioned this to like friends and colleagues that there are still independence movements, in some countries. Because I do think like yes, like being able to manage or control your own destiny is something unique to the human condition, and for me, it does really make a lot of sense for if a team can would like to build their own blockchain based on certain parameters. I think they would be very much interested to build that within the Cosmos Echo system, which allows the actually it's very easy to build a blockchain, especially if you have the community already. So I would say that yeah, I'm very happy now that I've sort of transitioned into a more of a operational or execution role. But yeah, I'm excited to learn like what others are thinking here in this space as well. Yeah.
Perfect, man. Well, I can give you a little bit of background of how I came across uh, all things Cosmos and IBC. So I got into crypto in December of 2017. And within my first few months, I had found a video of Vitalik Buterin talking about how it's going to be the Cosmos hub that's going to achieve, interoperability. And at that time, there were a lot of projects like Neo, Wanchain, Icon, Aeon. They all tried to do this interoperability alliance, but they did not take the end user in mind. They only thought about their devs and things like, how hard can they push their runway towards marketing and things of that nature. And then I had started doing research on IBC and all those things. And then come the pandemic, and of course DeFi summer. That's around that time. That's when I started going deep into DeFi, doing things like LP pools on Uniswap and 1inch and things of that nature. Using Aave. And then I was on staking rewards. There was this website called stakingrewards.com, and I had accumulated a lot of Atom right after the COVID crash. It was at $1, and I'm like, geez, dude, this thing goes from like $6 to $1 in less than a year. Like, I couldn't resist the deal, and the yield on that was in the double digits. So there's this cool feature on that website, and you can kind of see, like, products built on Cosmos, product built on ETH, products built on Wax, and also on Tron. And I saw Terra, and you were actually able to earn just a little bit more yield compared to the Atom token. So I got into that, and I saw Do Kwon's presentation on things like CNBC. I saw how Galaxy Digital was backing him up, and I saw what they wanted to do with the Mirror protocol and also with Anchor. And I just got absolutely hooked. And I pretty much almost all in Luna, and I held that for close to a year and a half. I did not sell a single one, and um, thankfully, thankfully, some of those things were realized, and I did get caught up during that debacle, but managed to get out by the skin of my teeth. But what I realized is that despite that, the Cosmos chain itself did not falter, it did not halt, and I was really thinking, if something were to happen to Maker or Aave, right, how would the Ethereum chain react, right? There's so much to do with all the locked Ethereum when it comes to these protocols, that there came a point in June during that liquidation cascade where MakerDAO almost got liquidated, and I really don't think that would have been healthy for the Ethereum ecosystem, right? And when I compare the two, um, I kind of see myself taking a step back and realizing, how does Cosmos, as far as their devs and their user count is concerned, compared to what Ethereum was in 2019 and 2020. If we look back, right, late 2019, there was just under 10 billion in total value locked on Ethereum, and Cosmos is not really that far behind, right? Especially when you start seeing things that are being built out on Juno, Stargaze, and then there are other chains launching, such as Neutron, and of course, my favorite, and I do have a bias towards it. I think it's a unicorn. It's Saga XYZ, right? And you really have to put it into perspective with the way the dev count is growing. And with Cosmos, their main thing is user interface, right? You really have to wonder, once the tides start changing, right, and you start seeing more innovation and more growth within this asset class, there's an argument to be made that a lot of the social capital retention that's within Ethereum could migrate over uh, to Cosmos, right? So that's a little bit of an introduction of how I came across all things IBC, and I really enjoy, like, the interface and all of those things. But I wanted to ask you, since you guys are building stuff, um, how do we onboard the next few million users uh, to Cosmos? I wanted to know, what are some things that we can work on to achieve that, and that's sort of like our mission statement here. not only at Because Bitcoin, but also at Arca Partners? How do we make it easier to onboard the next 100 million users onto the digital asset space? And how can we add value to the ecosystems that provide economic sovereignty in facilitating a streamlined onboarding experience? And there are some platforms out there. I know Tendermint Timmy has his platforms, and we're personally looking into helping them out, right? With Spark IBC and also Interchain Info. And I think it's platforms like that that really help with the onboarding experience. Um, and given the insane amount of activity here on Twitter Spaces, you've got the people from Juno, from Stargaze. You have guys like Joe. You have guys like Seffi and Bruce, just always doing these spaces almost every day. So I wanted to know your guys' take on it. We can start with Will. Will, how do we onboard the next few million users onto Cosmos? How do we get there, brother?
Yeah, I definitely have a little bit of a bias when it comes to this stuff because I do love looking at things from a business perspective, from a almost a very practical perspective. And I mean, to me, I think it's hard to pinpoint any one thing. Like, I think there's a little bit of a laundry list of like maybe 4 or 5 things that all come into play. First off, I completely agree with your assessment that, like, to me, Cosmos, I think, is still like early days, quite frankly, and I think it's got a lot of room to grow. Um, I want to start out by saying what I do think it does right. Like, it's got a lot of great things going for it, even and especially compared to Ethereum. Honestly, the biggest thing that I think it's got going for it is it just feels to me, and I'm a software engineer, so I know the tech quite well. I've built on Cosmos for over a year now, and to me, it's built really well. I think that's probably the biggest thing it's got going for it. Like when I compare it to the other blockchains, I think it was really built from the ground up to be modular, to have a lot of stuff going on top of it, to be forked, to be like split into pieces. Like it's got a really, really smart architecture to it. And this is not to mention it's built on an absolutely kick-ass programming language, Rust, or sorry, the top level API layer. Now, building on that, I think if I look at the laundry list of things that would put Cosmos ahead, I think it's really attacking what its weaknesses are. And I mean, right near the top of my list, I would say just continuing to have more tools built out for it and having more documentation built out for it. I think there can never be a shortage of that. And quite frankly, I think it's one thing that crypto could do a lot better, is just having good documentation there for developers and making it really easy for new developers to come in who, they may be from totally different industries, quite frankly. Just making it easy for them to get started, I think, is a huge one. I think beyond that, thinking about how to fill the gaps, I think, is a huge one for me. Like, I think there's a lot of people like to rush to the same things, like to build liquidity protocols or build, borrow lend protocols. There's always the top picks that we always see in DeFi. I think there needs to be more people who look at things from a what's missing mindset. Like, look at Cosmos as a whole and figure out, what chains aren't there, what protocols aren't there, where are the gaps right now? Because if you look at Ethereum, it's really hard to find gaps nowadays, or those really, really big protocol or those really big networks. There's, almost everything has been thought of, and it's kind of hard to innovate now. But I don't think that's the case for Cosmos. I think there's still a lot of green fields, a lot of big things that haven't been built yet. So I think not building the same thing everyone else is, and finding new things is another big point. And then I really, there's 2 things I want to harp on a bit because it's something that I think is a bit of a problem in crypto. But I think 2 huge things are practicality and I'll call it, I don't know if I have the right name for it, but a little bit less degeniness. I think if you look ahead at what markets are going to be like, with interest rates rising and with things, maybe us entering a recession worldwide soon, I think we really have to take a good hard look at making things a bit more sustainable in crypto. And I see that as kind of a 2-front battle. On the one hand, I think we really need to think about real world application, building practical things that everyday people can use and, can, be things that you can download a mobile app for, or, things that aren't just specialized to crypto. I think is one of the big things. And then the other big thing is, I think, a little less degen-ness. Like, think about ways to make protocols more sustainable. Think about ways to build value that isn't just like, oh, we've got a super high yield and we just inflate our token. Um, I do think it's hard to be, at the head of the curve of that, because, it's still, I think, where the culture is, and it's still where the momentum is right now. But if you can get it right and you can really sell people on value and vision, I think you can be at the leading curve of being, I think what will be the next generation of more sustainable protocols that can survive this higher interest rate environment. So that's my 2 cents. And, in case it's not obvious, I don't think there's any one thing. Like, I think it's 4 or 5 things. But, again, reflecting, I think it's all built on that foundation of Cosmos just being this amazing, really well built, really modular, very strong technology tool. And actually, one closing thought here, it's where I really think Cosmos gets it right, is I think Cosmos is much more so moving faster and breaking things than a lot of the other chains are. Like with IBC, with the upcoming ICS, like, they're really building new systems and building them quickly, quite frankly, at an impressive pace for crypto. And I think it's really going to serve them well, because I think all of crypto is still a little bit early. So the ones that are moving faster, I think, have a better chance of getting ahead.
Perfect, man. With that being said, Jay, I want to follow up with you on what Will just spoke upon. What are some of the things that Cosmos has a framework where it can host things such as that he mentioned, right? I was speaking to the co-founder of Quicksilver, and we were talking about certain money markets being built on top of Cosmos. But I wanted to know your take on it, given that you are working on a project within Cosmos and IBC. So, you personally, what are some things that could be built out on Cosmos, and what would you like to see being built out? Because as Will had stated, I don't think there's going to be much of a market demand when it comes to these farming protocols, right? Or anything that was resembling Olympus DAO. Over the last like week or two, we've seen some projects come out as quote unquote the rebirth of OHM, and Orion Phi was one of those products that was really hyped up. And for a second there, I got kind of geeked up, because it gave me some memories about those exciting times. But now that the space has learned its lessons from 2022, there was actually some information coming out that there were some individuals in some of these private chats saying that it was going to rug and all this stuff. So I don't think that's going to be much of an attention grabber, especially when it comes to new capital entering this market. What are some of the things that you would want to see being built out using the Cosmos SDK? And what are some chains that you think they would be suitable on, right? I know Stargaze has their stuff built out for more of like NFT and GameFi stuff. And then you have Juno, right? Which is basically like the most crypto esque centered chain within the Cosmos Hub, where there's really no VCs. It's mainly all community funded, and it's sort of like crypto in its early days, even though we're not really in crypto in its early days, right? It feels like Ethereum in 2016, where it was labeled this worldwide super cloud internet computer, right? And Juno's kind of having all these ideas being bounced around, and even myself, I'm not too sure what exactly they're going to be looking like within the next few years, and that's a good thing, right? With these new chains, I definitely think that they should try a bunch of things, and then ultimately fail on most of them and learn from that, and then build upon the things that they were good at. So wanted to know your thoughts on that, brother.
Yeah. Thanks, Bobby. By the way, I just want to mention that Will knows what he's talking about because he has built an sort of a software and an app that has sold close to 3 million copies. So when he shares his insights, it comes from like that experience. From my end, that's really a good question. I think part of like the conversation that I want to start as well on top of like what can be built first on using the Cosmos tech stack. I think for the space in general, we've seen, obviously now we've seen a lot of blow ups from Terra to Celsius to FTX. I do think the space needs to have more maturity as well. I think a lot of the founding teams, while the space is pretty exciting in a sense, and there's a lot of innovation happening. I think for a lot of founders and especially communities, I would say, considering the decentralized nature of the space, the communities, in a sense, have to demand as well. I don't know what we can call it, but like I feel like a lot of the founding teams, founding members, the core development teams need to undergo. I'm from my longest industry experience is in the education sector or the training sector. I would say like the leadership across different projects should mature. Like there should be more maturity across the space. We can do that by going through these training programs. Incubators and accelerators are good mechanisms for that. The other one is also maybe bringing in a functioning board, like really having not just having advisors who are knowledgeable on specific areas, but I think from when you look at the biggest technology companies, they the CEOs and the founders do get coaching from mentors and advisors who have done it before. I think for the crypto space, that's really a very important thing that we need, like more maturity in terms of like leadership, considering that it's very hard. It's very hard to function in the space because of, especially for the ones that have sort of have really given out a decentralized structure to their projects. Like there's like one team doing marketing, there's another team doing operations, there's another team doing something else. I think it's important, like for these leaders and like these core teams to have exposure to like what works in Web 2 and traditional, and be able to bring that to this space. I can't emphasize this enough. Like a lot of the blow ups that happened last year is really, I mean, to some extent this might sound a bit harsh, but yeah, it's like kids playing around, and building, like building things. I do think, like, yeah, we need to realize that even if you're just in your 20s, you're already like a leader in the space, and you need to, like, get mentoring or coaching advice from people who have done it before. I do think that that's really needed in the space, because it's so easy in a sense to launch a token that succeeds in a way. Like, I remember during the early days of Terra, in 1 hour, I saw, like a token go, I think achieve like 3,000% X return in 1 hour, or maybe that was a 1 day. But basically, in a short period of time, in a sense, you could really be successful in the space. But what that now should force you to do is like, the hardest part, like from my experience, I'm a founder as well of a nonprofit, which is in a sense very successful in my country. Um, the hardest part is actually not managing failure, but managing success. How do you keep the momentum going? How do you keep the project going once the success is there? Because once you can afford to do a lot of other things, there could be a lot of distractions as well. So having said that, I can't emphasize that enough. That's why I spent a few minutes there. I do think, like, we need to, the in terms of leadership, in terms of attitude, we need to mature as a space as well. In terms of like the tech stack that you can build in the Cosmos, I do think that there are already promising chains and apps being built. In terms of even like fintech or payments, I do think there are integrations happening that are really nice. I like Akash, for example, for like its decentralized cloud positioning. I like Cosmos Hub, obviously, as a as a sort of like provider chain. I do think it has it has been able to prove that concept that it could be like a father or mother figure to other chains that want to launch. I do like Osmosis as well. I think it has achieved sort of its vision of like being an interchain dex. Obviously there might be others coming there that will challenge this, but so far I think we're the innovation is happening in the space. The thing that I really want to see is more focus on user onboarding. When you look at Ethereum and EVM chains, just because of first mover advantage in a sense, they've really been able to onboard millions of users. And the same with Solana. I think there was really a focus on like real life events to churn in a lot of people into the space. But I do think, as a last point, like Cosmos should the sort of like the UI and UX is really nice, but it's like the concept of that has been debated for quite some time in terms of like websites, like build it and they will come. From my experience, people don't really come. Even if you have like the best website, you need to figure out how to funnel people into the platform, or the app. So I think for Cosmos, the tech, the tech is amazing. The people and the community are amazing, but I think in order to onboard the next million or billion of users, we need to be more inviting to to the rest of the population. So I think there are teams out there that are already working on this. Like the wallet experience has to be better. The like navigating through the different protocols has to be better. But yeah, I think we're laying the foundation for that. I do see some very exciting projects out there. But yeah, I guess to summarize, more maturity in terms of like the community management and leadership. And then secondly, yeah, more focus on really like the channels that we can tap to onboard the next user. So there's like the marketing is good, but now we need to look at distribution as well. Like how do we onboard um how do we onboard more users into the ecosystem and apps. As a last point, sorry if I'm going over this. It You need like the way to look at like building blockchains is really like cities or hubs. um when you look at Juno, for example, it's really nice that it's sort of like community owned, like there's no VCs. But I think now we're learning that you need VCs, that you need, ecosystem partners in a sense, because they could devote resources to the development of the chain. Maybe you can like, play with the ratio that, that's allotted to investors or VCs or, institutional partners. But I do think even that in the real world, you'd need like initial, when you're building a city, you'd need someone to invest in a school, in a church, in a hospital, and in basically the initial housing areas, for example. And most of the time, that's really very hard to do, like from a grassroots perspective. I do think there might be cases wherein it's really like community driven, but I think with the work that we're trying to build here, we need all possible stakeholders. It's a matter of like deciding, like what role they can play and how much, in a sense. Obviously, we want to keep it decentralized. Um, but I do think, yeah, I think we learned a lot from the experience of Juno. We also learned a lot as a last point. With Evmos, for example, I really like the Evmos thesis of like merging the EVM model plus the Cosmos chain. But there are not a lot of apps building on Evmos right now. So again, it's not it really it really requires us to innovate on that front in terms of like community building, and also like thinking of what will mention it, like thinking of what's missing. I think, yeah, we need to have that attitude instead of like copying what's out there. We need to think like what's missing out there and like build it. Yeah, I'm sorry for going over there a bit, Bobby.
No, you're good,
Yeah, no
man.
problem, man.
I was gonna ask, so I do like what you said about VCs because I think that they do get a bad rap a lot because if you have VC, like there's two different types of VCs, right? There's ones that are there to like extract value, and then there's ones that are there to provide value, right? And so if you like, as long as projects are doing their vetting and like making sure that these people aren't like brand new to the space and they're actually there to like see the project succeed, and I think that they can actually be really helpful and like, make sure that projects can end up thriving. And I was to say what to like go off of what you were saying about all the things that you think projects need as far as like a board and like building real world applications. Like, is that something that you think will happen from regulation, or do you think that's something that will happen like within the community, like a change of culture? Because I personally think that for a lot of those things, it'll probably be something that like when regulation comes, a lot of those things will fall into place and people will be a lot more willing to build here. And that's probably coming within the next like 12 to 24 months. So I was curious to your thoughts on
I
that.
mean, I think you're going to see a mix of the two because I think there's both a practical side and a helping solve getting more money into the space side. Like the practical side is basically there's a reason that boards exist, like Jay is talking about. Like there's a reason that FTX should have had way more oversight and way more good governance practices than it did. It's because the lack of those things causes those problems that we're seeing. Like it causes what happened with Terra. It causes what happened with FTX. So there's an element of, even if it's voluntary, there's an element of that stuff being needed to make the space function properly. Like these aren't like debates. Having a board of directors or some function that's like that and having oversight of things functionally is what prevents, accountability prevents systemic failures like that. But beyond that, I think there's also an element of, I think what you're going to start seeing is it's really difficult to like truly authoritatively enforce anything over the crypto space because of, how like internet like it is basically. But I do think you're going to see a lot more, in quotes, regulation at the gates. So basically, like if a VC or if a big funder of money or a big centralized exchange or a big on ramp or whatever it might be wants to operate, I think you're going to see increasing pressure to ensure that the places that they're providing access to have some form of oversight over them in order for them to be listed. I have an unconventional take on some of this stuff that I think some international standards for like boards of directors or token listings or things like that would actually be a good thing. But, structuring it as a voluntary thing and, the more you apply those, voluntary international, guidelines or, best practices, the more access you can get and the more like, the traditional financial world will be able to integrate. Because I think you're seeing kind of like a good, bad, and the ugly style standoff between like regulators, investors, and the crypto world right now, where nobody knows who's going first, and in some cases they want to be working together more. But yeah, I think it's interesting nonetheless.
Do you think we'll end up moving away from like the DAO model? Because I think honestly, there's like, I think it's a great like concept and it's a great idea, but in its current state, I think there are some issues. And like for the sense, I think there, like in a lot of instances, it would be better if a place just had a board that was making the decisions rather than the community, because it can be really easily manipulated. Like you see with like Uniswap, they often like there's select people that control all the tokens and they just like vote to give themselves grants and stuff, right? And so I think that like I think there's some problems with that. And
I don't. No, go
Oh
ahead.
no, yeah. I just think, and like you see it too with like a lot of different DAOs, like they'll basically just create a proposal, and then you know the like it there's no incentive to buy the token because there's like one or two people that have so much of the token that they can basically just immediately win every vote. So it's not truly decentralized, you know? And so I think that there could be like some kind of new model hopefully that comes out. It's like I don't have the answer for what it is, but and maybe it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
return to
So
form for like having a traditional board and stuff, but I don't know. I just like I'm kind of skeptical of like the idea of just seeing some of the stuff that's gone down in like the last year.
no, I think you're very, very on point, and I think I would just to your exact like the sentence that you said, like, do you think we'll see, like moving on or something different from the DAO model, or change from the DAO model? I think honestly, what we'll see is we'll see an evolution of DAOs. I can use our own project as an example. We're actually building a representative democratic system for the currency that we're building. So there's literally going to be like you elect representatives. Each person gets one vote, and you don't hold votes left and right for every little thing that you're doing. And I forget. I don't know who to attribute this to. It was probably like Voltaire or some political scientist, famous political person, political theorist from early on. But I remember somebody famously said that like pure democracy is actually almost one of the worst forms of governance, short of anarchy. And it's because it's really hard to be functional when you've got 1,000 voices in the room, all trying to, operate something. So I think some level of innovation is needed there. I know our project is innovating a lot on that front, and I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm sure we're not the only ones. I've been to a number of like private tech talks where DAO governance and building charters and having different election systems, having representative systems, like those are all things that are being talked about a lot right now, especially in the wake of what we saw in this last crypto burst. So I think we're actually quite early days with all that stuff, quite frankly, and I think it's one of the biggest areas we're going to see evolution. And yeah, I think it's needed and healthy, quite frankly, because I think again, like I think it causes a lot of problems to not have functional governance there and have people there who are making responsible decisions.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm glad you guys are doing something slightly different with the delegation system because I know like if you were staking your atom, you could choose which delegator you would you know, want to delegate your atom to, and then that changes like what airdrops you get, or that's just one example, but like it could also just be like who you like the most, and just kind of like the traditional voting system. And I think that's a much smarter system just because it solves the problem of like there's not 1,000 voices, right? But then it also solves the problem of like you can't just buy influence by being like a whale, necessarily. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm glad you guys are taking a different approach.
All right, Avocado, do you want to add to the conversation, brother? I know been leaving you been leaving you there, man. It's just been discussion back and forth, man. I don't want to leave you out there, brother.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm kind of a bystander to some extent because I'm probably the person that knows the least about Cosmos. So I'm kind of learning myself here, listen to you guys. But um, just wondering, like, obviously, like recruiting talent, developers is kind of the lifeblood. A lot of small chains like Canto and some of these guys have had, relatively, success in a short amount of time, and you can maybe attribute a lot of that to just having, like really good kind of early ways to, hackathons and things like that, and ways to onboard developers. Is what like how do you see like Cosmos ecosystem overall? Bringing in people that are interested, competing with Solidity in some way.
So for myself, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and give you that answer, brother. I had mentioned earlier with us with things like Spark, IBC, and Interchain info. So with interchain info, their aim is to make the interchain, like all things IBC, like feel unified, and also like ease of use as far as their navigation is concerned to any user on any skill level, right? And they aggregate informations and they use tool on and off chain from across the interchain. So it's more than just Cosmos, right? It's all things that connect back to Cosmos, right? And of course, there's bridges to things like Ethereum, right? To Canto, to Juno, to Stargate. So it's gonna be sort of like an all-in-one. So that's gonna help out a lot, and they do incorporate like this index that's sort of, think of it as the Wikipedia, right? So you're gonna have everything from validators, the SDK set, and then they're also going to have like sort of a resource hub, right, where they're going to be able to aggregate videos, articles, audio from a bunch of different platforms like YouTube, Twitch, Medium, Twitter Spaces, like nothing, no table unturned, right? So everyone is staying up to date with everything that's going on, but again, it also synergizes and works with their index page to kind of go from chain to chain, right? And the main thing that they're working on is their UI, right? Their dashboard, and that is where Cosmos shines. And so as far as Spark IBC is concerned, they're more of like networking, onboarding people onto their platform, hosting them on Twitter Spaces, helping out with like some biz dev stuff, and it's more like community driven and all that stuff. So I think it's platforms like that they're gonna help out overall with what you're referring to. And again, it's all about the community as well, and it's great to see projects like this, and that's why I'm honestly excited that we're going to be working alongside with them over the coming few weeks. I actually have someone that wants to come up. His name's Corporate Rarma. I'm assuming that is a Juno PFP. I'm assuming. So with that being said, I see we're closing onto the hour, so we will be accepting um, anyone that wants to come up and speak, ask a question, give a statement. Feel free to do so, and we'll bring you right up. In case you just came into the space, my name is King Wabi, and I host these spaces almost every day. We onboard people that are like building within ecosystems, our founders, people from the venture capital space, individuals from within the crypto Twitter community, whether it's DeFi or like Web3 NFT verse sort of things, and also people that just like to trade and they love the volatility. Tomorrow, our show is at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we're featuring Big Cheds, a good friend of the brand, and I'm gonna bring you up, Corporate Rama. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at Because Bitcoin. I focus mainly on the crypto specific side of our content when it comes to Twitter Spaces, and we will be rolling out YouTube formatted content going into late Q1, early Q2, and that's a completely separate branch that does deal with Arca. So look forward to that as well. And be sure to check out our pinned tweet in regards to Bing X, who's sponsoring our trading competitions. So check that out if you're into trading on a centralized exchange that allows you to trade some spot stock and allows you to have um, some exposure to the U.S. equity market. So with that being said, I see we have Corporate Rama. I want to welcome you onto our show. Thank you for taking the time out of your Monday morning, afternoon, evening, and joining us here on stage. Thank you so much. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, Wabi, I'm good, man. I'm good. It's just after lunch here in the land of Oz. I just got word from one of the corporation's employees that you guys were discussing some DAOs, and I was just interested to kind of I caught the very tail end of it, I think, around DAOs and potentially how you need more of a dictatorship rather than kind of DAOs. And I did miss a bit of it, so maybe like a quick 20-second recap of that would be great, just so then I can kind of talk to the points that I had.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying,
Go
not necessarily a
ahead,
dictatorship.
Vane. Go ahead.
Yeah, not necessarily a dictatorship. I was just saying that I think there's some issues with the current traditional DAO model because like basically, someone like one whale can just create a proposal and then vote for the proposal and they'll automatically win. And then they can basically they can extort a treasury, for themselves. And like, there's been some people like that, like Uniswap, they've been a couple times like just voted to give themselves grants and then, just rent or like give their friends grants, just weird stuff like that. And then even ENS recently was like, has this big vote if like they want to, buy back names that are on premium right now that like they think are offensive and stuff. And then they like, there's only select people that hold a bunch of the tokens that they can just vote and win the token instantly. So they're then, Will was saying that their project is actually different because it's having a delegation system. So I think that's pretty cool. And, it's from what I understood, like stakers will delegate their atom to, one person. But yeah, if you want to just go on.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. Maybe I'll just briefly touch on the corporation. The corporation's a DAO built on Juno. It's a C corp. It's got shares, but we tend to agree over at the corporation that the true DAO model has flaws. So what the board of the corporation has done is taken full control of the shares in the treasury. The board is made up of one NFT shareholders. So there's no concerns with buying your way or buying extra power. You just have you have a single NFT per board member that you stake, and then the board has full control of the corporation and all employees, all decision making, treasury, etc. So tend to agree. Your typical DAO model with stake tokens doesn't necessarily work. So that's why we've created the corporation, to really showcase that re-centralizing the decentralized world is the solution. And there's various ways that you can go about that. Things like we've already given ourselves substantial shares in the corporation. Each board member has 100,000 corp tokens, and we will pay our employees very small salaries of corp tokens. Each employee gets a single NFT minted into a sub-DAO of the corporation, but essentially they have no control and no power of the corporation. They will, over time, very slowly accrue corp tokens as a salary, and we will ensure as the board that they never have enough vote power to overthrow the board, though.
Rarma, so essentially, board of directors equals board of dictators, yeah?
Damn straight. Re-centralizing the decentralized world. One NFT, PFP at a time.
Now, a traditional board of directors has an election system. Like, are the quote unquote shareholders?
Nope, not in this environment. The board decides who becomes a board member. We have full control of the corporation.
I love it. I get what you're going for.
If you're in Cosmos, if you're in Cosmos, go to DAO.zone and search for the corporation. You can find the corporation. You'll see there's a few corporate members in here now. There's actually a fair few of the board of directors in here. We've got the Squid, we've got corporate Amanda, corporate Squid.
What's
corporate
the purpose
Amanda.
of the corporation DAO?
Sorry, what was that?
Purpose?
The purpose of the corporation?
Yes.
The purpose of the corporation DAO is to show that it doesn't matter who you are within the Cosmos ecosystem. If you are an individual, Don't have to be a dev. You can be a pleb like me. You can come in and you can absolutely take the piss out of the entire ecosystem and all of the big shot names and the head honchos who think that everything we do is just a piss take. And we're just showing them that, yes, it really is. And we can do it by putting animals on suits and creating a C Corp in the ecosystem that is a real living vision of how they
I'm so
run
sold.
and how they're
So,
trying to run the Cosmos ecosystem.
Rarma, so if the corporation doesn't mind, I'll bring a few of them up just so we can kind of get a vibe check. You can say that we're messing around, so we're about to find out. So let's find out. So
I think you'll find that the board members that you're about to bring up all have a very shared and aligned vision.
perfect.
We're just voting on, at the moment, our guiding principles. And I think
Perfect.
the very first one is ensuring that we extract maximum value from the ecosystem and all of our employees to ensure that the shareholders realize maximum returns.
Exactly. All right. So I'm gonna bring them up one at a time, right? So the squid guy, corporate squid, invite to speak. I've invited you to speak, sir. Invite to speak. I see corporate Amandao. Invite to speak. I've invited you to speak. Invite to speak. I also see Embedo Corporate Design. Invite to speak. I've sent you an invite.
Don't invite Embedo. He's not a board member.
Okay.
He's just a pleb executive.
Get him out of here.
Yeah, we don't
All right.
invite the pleb
So,
executives up here. See, you can see how we run the corporation now, right?
So what about POA Corp? Is he good?
No, the members that you currently have are all of the board of directors that are currently present. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. So I guess we'll do somewhat of a roundtable. Corporate Squid, what's going on? And what's the latest going on? What's happenings and going ons over at the corporation?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the nice intro there, King Wabi. Yes, my name is Corporate Squid. I'm the corporate voice, bare metal validator middleman for the corporation. Thank you for inviting me.
Who's the supreme leader?
We're all the supreme leaders. I mean, once you're part of the board, we all treat each other the same way.
Oh, wow.
However, I am President Rue, so
Supreme leader of the supreme leaders.
Yes.
yeah, we have lots of corporates, and then we have President Rue, we have Chairman Meow, and a yet to be fulfilled supreme leader seat.
At the end of the
All
day,
right,
what brings in the most money to the corporation, will climb up the ladder, the corporate ladder. So if you're one of those guys, one of those girls that loves to just rake in tons of cash, if it makes you horny, if cash makes you horny, you can join the corporation.
So how does one begin to join the corporation? Corporate Amanda, we haven't heard you speak yet. How are you doing, ma'am or sir?
Ma'am, yes, I'm doing well. Hope you guys can hear me tonight. I am corporate project management at the corporation, and all one has to do is ask. It's that simple.
Yeah, I've just pinned a tweet to the top of the nest. I hope that's okay, King Wabi. I was going to do it even if you said no, but that's okay.
That's fine, dude. That's fine.
There is a corporate directory pinned, and the current application process is at the bottom of that corporate directory. In addition to that, we've been ensuring that our CTO and HR department have been working 27 hours straight for the last 3 days to implement our seamless, streamlined digital onboarding process that they ensure me will be announced imminently, and they know that if they don't do that within the deadline, they get fired and their NFT gets burnt. So that will be coming out very soon. Keep an eye on general corporates Twitter threads, Twitter pages. All the corporates generally share it around. Don't follow any one of us, follow all of us. And if you would like to be involved, you can. The terms and conditions are that you can request a Twitter profile picture completely free of charge. There is a queue, but rest assured, they're working 27 hours a day and they will get you your PFP. If you want to become an official member of the corporation and have your one-of-one minted NFT and join as a member of a subDAO, it's the massive, massive cost of 5 Juno.
1 second, guys. Rarm, are you editing the shared document right now with me? Because I think I might have deleted somebody's name on accident.
I have that name. That's okay. Don't let it happen.
Sorry,
again.
guys. We're busy working right now. You caught us at a kind of like a tough time to get on a space. We've been very busy, but it's okay. We're here if you guys have any questions.
Guys, so where can we follow the corporation? Is there a page where we can see the NFT collection and all that stuff?
Yeah, so currently we're not going down, the normal pleb route of Web 2 centralized Twitter page. We think that's really boring and played out. Follow the corporation members, and at some point, the board may elect to create a corporate Twitter page. But at this stage, we don't think that we want to follow that route. All of the normal Cosmos ecosystem projects and people create those centralized Twitter pages, and we just don't think that centralization in that area is the right approach. We think that decentralized social media is the answer, and centralized DAO management is the answer.
Will, I do have a question for you and Jay. For what you guys are building, how can the corporation benefit from it? I think we're gonna get down to business here before we start wrapping up.
Oh no, absolutely. Well, I'm sure you fellas at the corporation, given the economic times right now, are probably considering layoffs. And
Not
no,
all. Just very quickly on that, we're full steam ahead. We've onboarded 40 to 50 corporate members in the last couple of days, and it's exponentially growing.
Correct. Just today, I sent out like 6 offers to hire senior financial advisors, and all of them have accepted except one. Right now, I'm still waiting for who is it? CZ's email reply. So I'm just CZ's.
Yeah, the finance. Yep. Just quickly on that, Will.
We are,
I think,
however.
Sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, President Rue. Yeah, I just got word that we are accepting resumes for part-time janitors on weekends.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's for
Right.
you. Just very quickly, Will. I know we are getting short of time. One of the key things at the corporation is ensuring that you lure them in with great memes and profile pictures, make the promise of salaries, and then give them said salaries so you don't break your promise, but ensure that the corp token salaries is at a level that they just barely survive, and you keep reeling them in and coming back for more corp tokens. That's the key. Got it.
And I'm assuming we'll save the layoffs for later down the road.
It's inevitable. I think we all know that. At some point, there will be poor performers. Our key metrics is 50x return on our investment. So minimum. If you don't meet that, you will have your NFT burnt.
Well, so as for our project, I'm assuming that like any other company, you need to pay those salaries, and you've got a lot of different liquidity needs. So I can speak for our project a little bit. We're actually, I mean, I'll say it to who I'm assuming there's probably a lot of people who've followed Terra or are quite well versed in Cosmos. I myself was someone who I got into DeFi about maybe 2 years ago. I'm actually from more the regular business world. I ran a video game company for about 7 years. But I really love what I've seen so far in Cosmos. And quite frankly, I think Terra's old vision of building a decentralized stablecoin was honestly awesome and a bit ahead of its time. So we're working on a project that it's admittedly a little ambitious, but we're basically aiming to build the decentralized version of an international currency. And to be clear, what I mean by that, we're actually making a stable currency that's going to be available across all major crypto networks, bridgeable across all major crypto networks, as USDC will be, and does not peg to any fiat currency. It actually is its own national currency that sets its own stable exchange rate, and sets its own independent monetary policy, interest rates, the works. So we've got a really big vision for that, and we're building a lot of I believe to be revolutionary tech that's going to make that possible. Basically, building the crypto's first cross-chain monetary currency. And what I because I don't know if I would always say this to all sorts of different audiences, but because I know a lot of you are familiar with Terra, one thing I think Terra did that was very, very smart was they denominated the Terra network and let you pay fees with a stable currency, and tried to make a stable currency universally used across the network. So I do think a lot of stable coin projects struggle to get adoption, and we're being very, very in tune with that with this currency we're building. So one key thing that we're doing is we're going to have the first crypto network that is exclusively denominated in and requires fee payment in a stable currency. Again, we're really trying to put our our money and our actions where our mouth is, as far as really saying that crypto needs to focus more on utility and providing real world things that people can do with it. And we do think that one really key thing to that is leaning more into stable currencies. Less money to be made. You're not investing in a stable currency, so to speak, but I think it gives crypto networks way more usability. So we're launching that crypto network side by side with it. And one of the key things that I think is really aiming for us to propel both of these things is launching these two major projects independently, side by side, and basically fueling each other's growth with the other. So one big part is we're going to be handing a major portion of the Genesis supply of the network to the reserves of the currency. And then vice versa, pushing for that currency to be used universally across that crypto network. And I think there's a lot more to come with it. Like, both those projects are yet to be announced, but we're going to be starting to share our light paper, launch our public Discord, and do things like that in the next few weeks here. We've a little bit been trying to mostly focus on building it, quite frankly, right now, because it's an ambitious thing from a tech and an invention perspective. But yeah, I mean, for you guys, like, honestly, I'd say for any crypto project, really, like, we're trying to encourage people to think differently about stable currencies. I mean, if I can speak candidly, I think it's a shame that all across crypto, we've built this, amazing diverse system of financial networks, and we're all still using like a fiat currency across all of them, like USD stablecoins. So we're trying to basically launch the equivalent of a national currency for crypto. And if anything, if we can get people to start using a stable currency that isn't pegged to a fiat currency, I think that's the biggest battle that we're pushing very, very, very hard for in what we're launching. And I think we can get critical mass with that and be the first project that hits sort of a sustainable level and does that. And my aim and hope is that from there, the value prospect of being able to use a non-fiat pegged currency that has sufficient critical mass will start to cause a snowball.
We're huge fans of snowballs here, dude. Well, I'm excited to learn more about your product once it starts rolling. Reading the light paper and all that stuff. Hopefully, I get to join you guys up on Twitter Spaces. And I'm going through the audience, and I see this one product that's building on Cosmos Coin Landing Page. CLP is a place to discover and learn more about the cosmos. We're on a mission to build the observatory of the cosmos where people broaden their horizons. I'm going to invite them up to speak, see if they want to say anything, introduce themselves. With that being said, I do see that we had an uptick in our listeners. My name is King Wabi. I host these spaces on the Because Bitcoin Twitter page almost every day, and we host anywhere from VCs and founders to devs and also traders within the digital asset space. If you enjoy crypto specific content such as this, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin and turn on bell notifications so you can be made aware of when I do host these spaces. There's never a set time of when I do try to host them. Sometimes they're at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Sometimes they're a bit earlier. Sometimes they're a bit later, given some of the time zone differences with our guests. That time does have to be flexible, and that's what we're all about here. And if you guys know any projects or anyone building within all things Cosmos IBC, please let me know. Please reach out to me, and I'll see what we can do here, not only at Because Bitcoin, but also at the ARCA Partners when it comes to using our resources and helping out any way that we can. And it's also the things connected to IBC, right? It's also things like people building on Aptos, Say Network, all of those other chains, even Kanto, if you know anybody. We'd be more than happy to host them on our platform, on Twitter Spaces. And if you guys know anybody that would like their work to be hosted as far as blogging goes, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll host them on free of charge up on our website. And you guys will have free promotion to all of our audience. And just as a reminder, if you're not able to stick around across the entire Twitter space, it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. Just go on our YouTube and go to the playlist section where it says Crypto World Radio, and all of my prior spaces will be up on there. And as a reminder, tomorrow's space will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And as kind of like a little special for you guys, I will be hosting Saga XYZ, the official handle up here on my Twitter Spaces will Because Bitcoin this Sunday. The time is TBA. We're trying to shoot for 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern time. I did host Rebecca a few weeks ago, so you can be sure to check that out. She's the heart and soul of Saga. I really enjoyed speaking with her, and I am absolutely ecstatic for what they're trying to build. I honestly think it's the unicorn of this cycle. But yeah, look forward to that. And we'll also be hosting Jin Kwan, who's one of the founders of Saga XYZ. So look forward to that, guys. And we will be hosting the products being built out by Timmy, Spark, and also Interchain Info. So it'll be sort of an IBC Cosmos mega space. So look forward to that. And then we do have some stuff with Dimension, XYZ, and Say Network coming up this month. And yeah, look forward to that. If you enjoy that content, follow us here. And I see we have Dow Chemist. What's going on, brother? I want to thank you for coming on the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Thank you for having me on space, man. Appreciate that. It's a great conversation. I know you invited a coin Len to join, so maybe I'll ask my question to them and then to the rest of the panel as well. So I'm coming more from the Ethereum ecosystem. And, there's been a lot of conversation around data availability and Celestia and how you can leverage Celestia model to create rollups, right? Like rollups that can depend on Celestia as a data availability layer. And then when I look at the Cosmos ecosystem, obviously it's a very interesting ecosystem with different opportunities. I see this concept of app chain, right? And I guess I can wrap my mind around it that it's a chain that one protocol can decide to build on top of. And I guess that through IBC, you can connect with the other app chain in the Cosmos ecosystem. So I guess my question is, if Celestia is used to create rollups, but as well Cosmos is pushing the narrative of app chain, how do they differ And do you think that Cosmos is going to have this ecosystem of both, or is it going to be focusing on one versus the other? What's your general take on those two concepts, or are they just two words for the same thing when it comes to Cosmos? To anybody on the panel.
I can maybe speak to the architecture part. I'm not super well versed in Celestia, but I can speak to where Cosmos is heading and app chains. It's important to remember, first off, as a disclaimer, that I really think Cosmos is right in the middle of like a major shift. Like basically the shift has been the pre-IBC days when you had individual chains that were launching, and if you had a DApp, you pretty much had to pick the chain you wanted to launch it on. When IBC came along, everything became super interconnected. It's a lot like internet protocol, but for blockchains, and it made it possible for individual applications to basically host their own validator network and their own database. Because it was so interconnected with the others, you didn't have like a tiny market if you launched your own thing. But the very revolutionary thing that's coming within Cosmos that is going to completely change it all again is ICS. And it takes a little bit to wrap your head around it, but the gist of it is ICS actually starts to, and I want to give a disclaimer here. I believe I'm explaining things to the best of my understanding, but even I'm not an expert on it. What the gist of what ICS does from an architectural standpoint is it actually now separates the database from the validators. And the idea is you can have a network, X number of networks of validators, and those validators are all linked together by, in quotes, a chain. But you can also be an application that launches a chain but doesn't worry about hosting its own hardware and its own validator network. So instead, what you do is you pick a validator network to host you, like pick another chain to host you, and you get a separate chain within that validator network. And basically, the idea is giving each application its own chain as a database. So you can separate the blocks of each chain as an application chain, and then inside of an application chain you can still, as usual, have individual smart contracts running, which are almost like the computer equivalent of a program. And if I go to the computer analogy, like the best way I could describe all this stuff, and I'd really encourage everyone to use this analogy if you're trying to understand crypto from a technical perspective. A blockchain in general, like Ethereum or a traditional blockchain, is a lot like a distributed computer. And in that sense, what Cosmos has done is they've made a chain to be like the hard drive, and they're allowing a computer to have multiple hard drives within it, like multiple databases within it. And then on top of that, you can still run a smart contract. And that smart contract's a lot like an executable or a program installed on the system. And if you want to have a hard drive, you have to pick a computer that it goes in. So you have to pick an ICS provider, a validator network. And if you want to have a DApp on a smart contract, you have to pick a hard drive to go in. You have to pick an app chain to go in. So we're not in that world yet. We're still in the IBC world right now, and we haven't shifted to ICS, but it is being tested. I believe it's on testnet now for Cosmos Hub, and you're going to see, I think, things change just as much as they changed for what's it called, IBC, when ICS comes out. So yeah, a lot to change. That's a whole nother topic, like speculating how things will coalesce. Like I think you're going to see a lot of like coalescing around a few big security providers like Terra 2 and Cosmos Hub. I know are vying to be it. I'm sure Osmosis is going to vie to be a big one. I would assume Juno is. Like all the really big in quotes app chains and crypto networks within Cosmos are all going to be vying for that provider game. And then it's going to be even easier for individual applications to have their own chain because it's just hosted somewhere else.
So just a couple of things on that, Will. I think the ICS module, the way in which that kind of works is it's essentially a replication of the Atom validator set in its entirety. And then within the consumer chain, there's actually a connection back into like the Atom chain that ensures that you don't miss blocks on the consumer chain. And if you drop out of the set, then the new active validator set comes in, and they come in the replicates that over to the consumer chain and brings in the new validator. They're two completely like separate nodes in a sense from a validator perspective. The other part is the Terra side around Alliance. They're using, it's called like Feather or Alliance.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're building their own system.
Yeah, and I think they've essentially kind of taken a similar approach to ICS, but my understanding is they've used the Ignite CLI and forked it and made it really good. So it's really easy for people to deploy a new chain. I don't know the intricacies of that one. And the last one that you touched on was like Osmosis and Juno. Osmosis and Juno are kind of working together to build what's going to be called mesh security. And it'll be a smart contract that you can deploy on the chain where you'll be able to do kind of cross-chain staking. And you'll be able to have as many CosmWasm, which is the Cosmos smart contract protocol. You'll be able to have as many CosmWasm chains optionally join in the mesh. And the more cross stake that you have, the stronger the mesh becomes. So that's the model that they're looking at. It won't be like an SDK module. It'll just be a smart contract that chains can deploy, and people can optionally, cross stake their assets to be part of the mesh. So there's multiple different options, and I'm pretty excited to see the future of this kind of consumer provider or cross chain or mesh type solutions. It opens up a lot of opportunities. Personally, I'm not like a big fan of ICS. I think that version 1's probably going to have some issues, and I think Atom's doing the standard thing where they really overhype a particular thing and then unfortunately underdeliver in terms of the technical capabilities or the end product. I don't have like high hopes for ICS like providing good returns to Atom stakers in the short term.
So Rahman, real quick, if you were the CEO of Atom Chain, right, how would you design the adoption of that ecosystem? Would you go the route of ICS? Would you update it, or would you go another direction?
I think the ICS V2 or V3 model is far better. They kind of got themselves into a pickle where they announced it, and then there's some technical or complexity issues that they've got to work through around slashing and the number of chains using ICS V1 is very limited. A validator and these validators on Atom, they already validate multiple chains. Every time a new consumer chain is spun up, it's an extra node you've got to run and manage, and the downtime slashing is quite low, and you don't want to get slashed on your Atom chain at all. It's not a thing.
I do think they're heading in the right direction, though. I think that's the big thing.
For sure.
I think
right? I 100% agree, and I think ICS as a module is good. V1 is probably not going to be the greatest, but they definitely have the skills and the capabilities to make it better. Whether they can deliver V2, I think, is yet to be determined. But I think V3 is ultimately where you want to get to, which is similar to a mesh style, but more of I think it's like a permissioned mesh style essentially, where you don't need to use the entire validator set, and the consumer chain can have some of their own validators, which is nice. It's tough. Atom's very political. I think Atom 2.0 was the right direction for Atom. I don't think that they presented it the best way that they could have, and they should definitely have gotten like a lot more community input and feedback into the tokenomics and that sort of stuff before they presented the very technical heavy document. But the MEV approach, the allocator and scheduler, I think those are all good technically to head towards as a direction. They just needed to take a different approach to it.
And I do think this is also where the ultimate saving grace becomes the fact that it's open source, and very, very much built in a modular, customizable way. Because I think, as we saw with like the original Terra, which more or less was able to build something that for a time grew bigger than Cosmos, but was powered by the same tech. I think ultimately different chains and different groups of developers are going to vote with the source code. And ultimately, if you disagree with some of these design decisions, you can do what like Terra V2 is doing and customize the vision or build out a certain module in a different way. So I think that helps a lot. I will highlight because it's very relevant to our project. One of the things I'm very curious about is how the fees dynamic is going to work. Like, I really think once you start commingling all this stuff, like different basically smart contracts and apps that are running on top of different chains that are then running on top of different security providers, and all of them are be vying for fees to some degree. I really think a interesting and problematic dynamic is like handling the whole mishmash of different fee tokens that you're receiving as a validator, or just as a staker, honestly. So one thing our project is trying to offer is essentially trying to get more projects using a stable currency for the fees. And we're seeing if we can, we're building our currency at the chain level as a coin, and we're going to try and see if we can advance more, not even if it's our coin, but advance more projects, trying to stabilize and share the same fee denominations so that it's a little bit easier for end users. And you can still have those fees going out to whatever people are staking with ultimately.
That's pretty cool, man. I really appreciate those explanation. Try to wrap my mind around one last item, which is you guys mentioned obviously there's validators at the Atom chain layer, and then there's this consumer chain, which I assume is something similar to the app chain. So they have the option to have their own validators, right? Now, does that mean that you can, I guess, have this shared validation model where you use Atom chain as a settlement layer, or you have the option to just have your own validators and not get validated by the Atom chain, or how does the validation model works?
I believe there's three different modes that you can pick essentially. And again, I might not be using the right terms for this, but the gist of it is you can either completely use a different validator set. It's like fully delegated. You can use your own delegator set, or validator set, and then basically your own self-hosted network. And there will be a hybrid model. So you can split your own, like have some of your own validators, but augment the security by having it be 50% your validator set and 50% some much larger, bigger validator set.
Yeah, so from an ICS perspective, interchain security or replicated security is what they're calling it. The version 1 release, you have to use the entire 175 validators from the Cosmos Hub. That's a mandatory requirement for the version 1 release. There was plans to release, and the future roadmap was to release V2 and V3, which was a subset of the validator set, and then some of your own validators for V2, and then I think V3 was similar to the mesh model where you can pick validators from various chains to be the providers to kind of have that more mesh security. But V1, yeah, it's the whole 175 Cosmos Hub validator set. If you don't want to do that, then you would just stand up your own sovereign chain.
Gentlemen, this sounds really cool. But I do have one question to the panel. Anybody can start off by answering this one question. That is, we have all this tailored towards users like us, right? More advanced and all this stuff using a desktop, opening up browsers, what have you, wallet extensions, all that. But for the everyday user, they want mobile integration. So, what's the development happening right now within Cosmos that's going to help facilitate that? Because most people they want to do DeFi on their phone now. It's gonna get to that point where if you have more applications working on things tailored to individuals like us and not so much people that like to use mobile devices, I feel that we won't really have that much of a value capture despite how good the tech is. So if anyone can answer that, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I want to answer that. I think Coin Landing was also raising their hand. But basically, yeah, for the project that we're building, we do want to be able to focus on like the user experience, and yeah, part of that is really the mobile experience. I think part of the reason why from within the Cosmos ecosystem, like Terra was really able to onboard a lot of users was because you can use a lot of the the dApps or the protocols that we're building on it via your mobile phone. Like I actually am biased using my desktop or laptop, but I was really surprised when I would go into the forums and see a lot of requests from users to integrate like mobile, and some would even like, I think for iOS, and I think for Android you can do that as well. You can sort of add like a shortcut to the website. It sort of like creates like the logo is there, and then but it's a shortcut really to the website of the protocol. So I think a lot of like users do that for the protocols that they want that doesn't have mobile apps. So I do think like, yeah, for a lot of teams building in the space, the mobile they need to consider like the mobile experience as well. I would say like from the ones I've seen in Terra, I think 50%. I think the figure that I saw was like 50% of the users are using it via mobile. That's probably true across the Cosmos as well. I want to add, like from the previous discussion, I do really like the Cosmos thesis because if you apply it in the broader context, where again I mentioned it earlier, we're just really mirroring what's already happening in the real world. So I read like with Saga and Celestia, you could spin up a new blockchain as well pretty quickly. Basically, Saga is like offering like a validator or interchain security as a service, and then Celestia would allow you to build a modular blockchain easily. So I do think like the reason why I'm saying if you look at it from a maybe 10-year horizon or more, we're really just recreating what's already there. So basically, maybe the modular blockchains would be like your cities or your cities or your counties or your provinces or regions, and then your in a sense your monolithic uh, L1s would be like the countries, and then the ICS and alliance would be like NATO or EU or ASEAN, like the different multi regional groupings. So I do think we're just mirroring that, and basically we're sort of transforming it into like the multiverse or metaverse plane. But yeah, going back, I do believe it's very important. I think not a lot of teams are spending time on like creating like the mobile experience. I do think like, yeah, that's I think the crypto space in general have hit like a ceiling in terms of users that we can onboard, because basically when you look at like the top technology apps, they're all mobile first, and basically that needs to happen for crypto, because like everybody's just very used to using apps via mobile. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of focus there yet, but for a project, yeah, we plan to build that out.
I think there's an interesting analogy that's worth highlighting here. And I agree with your assessment, Jay, but if I can use the analogy of like Unix and Linux, I don't know how many people here are familiar with like the evolution of operating systems, but if you really think about it, like Unix got its biggest adoption in a sense once it started getting used for other things. Like Linux in particular, Ubuntu was a big source of adoption where, you certainly made it more practical for people to use it, but you needed somebody else to take a really good tech, Linux, and then focus on building a usable product on top of it. But two even more potent examples, I think, are looking at mobile phones. Like if you think about it, both iOS and Android are actually powered by a mix of Unix, or in Android's case, even Linux. So you have a piece of tech that didn't really have wide adoption outside of the server space, that grew massively in adoption once you had a big company or a big group come in and essentially build a big layer on top of it that was a lot more usable. And these are basically the Android and iOS operating systems, respectively. I think, in my own opinion, I think we saw a flavor of that when Terra came along. I think what Terra did that was really revolutionary was they basically built a super usable platform on top of another platform that had really good tech underneath it, Cosmos. And that's more or less the same type of strategy that we're opting for this network we're building. We're basically like when we're pitching it privately right now, we're pitching it as basically we're trying to build the Apple of crypto networks, like something that's super easy for people to use, and can have like, very easy mobile integration on top of it. But I would encourage more networks and more products to think that way. And unfortunately, I think there's a level of, big players that need to come in too to do that, because it does take a lot of capital and a lot of work to build that right and to build those, usable UX focused layer 2 layers on top of it. But I think that's what's ultimately going to bridge the gap. And like Jay said, I do think we're starting to hit a bit of a usability ceiling until, those critical usability layers come in.
I think you cut off there, brother. Will, you cut off there, your last statement, brother.
Oh, sorry. The last part I was just closing with, I think until we see those players come in and build those usability layer 2s, akin to the iOS, akin to the Android for Unix and Linux, I think you're gonna start to hit a ceiling, like Jay said. So I think we need some big players to come out and have more of a focus on user experience. And that's certainly what we're trying to do with the network that we're launching. It's a very almost purely UX focused network.
That almost kind of ties into what we're trying to achieve with Coin Landing Page is as while we're building a platform for like to make the Cosmos more discoverable or more easily discoverable, we're also trying to promote top-notch web design within the ecosystem. So because we see that like the UI and the UX has hit a ceiling, and it speaks to the ethos of the Cosmos, right? The builders are building, they're focused on the tech, but now it's time to give our eyes some candy.
Yeah, I mean, if I could say it very simply, like crypto is not going to hit its next level of adoption through things like Uniswap or SushiSwap or, all these DeFi protocols. It's going to hit its next layer of adoption through what looks like an Uber, an Airbnb, these very streamlined, slick mobile apps. And until you've got people building those mobile apps and, that are essentially powered by crypto underneath, I think you're really going to struggle.
I see
Exactly. I think that
we have Sefi in the crowd. Sefi, if you wanna join the conversation, feel free to do so. I invited you up to speak. Also, Ryan Lyon, feel free to come up. Invited you to speak as well. I know these guys from back in the Terra days. Always a good discussion with them up on these Twitter spaces. And I agree with you guys. I think ultimately what's going to happen is that the next chain that's gonna get the most value accrual isn't necessarily gonna be, oh, how do we take out market share from Ethereum, right? Or something like Solana, right? I think it's going to be how do we onboard that individual that is within Web 2, right? And when I say Web 2, I mean things like Fortnite, Call of Duty, on Discord, even Twitter, right? Like, how do we get the attention from those people, right? And I think the leverage that Cosmos has is the insane amount of onboarding as far as devs are concerned, and the amount of product that's being shipped out. And you know talking to the guys at Saga, their end user is essentially going to be things like GameFi. How do we make GameFi more accessible within the digital asset space, right? And ultimately build out an SDK that can be implemented within things like augmented reality and things like hardware sets and all of those things. And I think in 10 years, 15 years time, I think not every branch of tech within crypto, but I think at least a couple of chains are going to kind of branch off and sort of merge both Web 2 and Web 3. I know the term is kind of cringe for some people, but I mean, it's going to be something to get used to in 10 to 15 years when everybody is calling it that, right? So yeah, with that being said, Coin Landing Page. Thank you for coming on, dude. Thank you for coming on. And I've also invited Trev. I saw him in the audience. I saw his bio. He's part of Angel Protocol, Angel Alliance. I am aware of of what the guys at Angel do. I think Sefi was on a space with the founder. I forgot his name, Sefi. I'm sorry. And we talked some shop. He was a pretty nice gentleman. So I want to welcome you up on the show. My name is Wabi. I host these spaces pretty much every day, and I cover a wide variety of topics on all things digital assets. Um, Things like VC, things like different ecosystems within the space, and also people from within the community, whether they're a user or someone that runs a sub DAO or someone that just enjoys the volatility. We're accepting of everyone, and if anyone here in the audience enjoys these type of spaces, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin Twitter Spaces. So Sefi, what's up, man? How you doing, my man? How you feeling?
Not too much. Doing good.
Hi, Steph.
Hey guys. Oh, hey man. Good to see you, Jay. Yeah, I think the couple of points that the guys have made are like super correct. Like, there's a mobile first problem in crypto. I think the most recent sort of like work that's being done, for example, for Terra Station Wallet, is just like one example where we're trying to get more and more things to happen via, of course, the desktop, but also just like get all those features onto the mobile wallet. And people say things like, well, it's less secure, or maybe you're not using a ledger or whatever. But the thing is, like like a significant portion of the international world is not going to use a ledger. Like, they're simply not going to. So you need to figure out how to make seed phrases and other things more secure on mobile using sort of like the available technology. And I think it's generally pretty secure. Like, Android and iPhones are fairly secure, and I think there's ways to sort of continue to improve that, to the extent that like it's not that easy to steal people's money via the mobile experience. And I think outside of like problems like signing for things, signing contracts that are scams, that's one way to lose money. Ledger doesn't solve that necessarily, and a vast majority of people aren't losing money because they're being scammed from their smartphones at this point. That's not where most of the problem is. So I think the mobile first is super important. And then the second thing is, like, I think some people have said this, the just seed phrase management is not a user-friendly experience as well. What are the solutions for that, and how to make is it even possible to abstract that layer away, or is this going to be like a flaw of crypto forever, where we don't have a great way to sort of manage those? I mean, like, me carving my seed phrase into a piece of metal or a piece of skin or something like doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, there's solutions out there, but the problem is that all of them are somewhat imperfect. And that consumer unfriendly experience gets you to reach a ceiling that basically does not like, you would want the total addressable market to be all the mobile users on the planet. Most of the people that have a smartphone are sufficiently wealthy enough to bother to play with crypto, and so that's money you want flowing into the space. But you need to make that like really, really accessible for people, both in DeFi and in centralized finance, but also, and then like make it easier and easier not to lose your money doing stupid shit like just security problems and things of that nature. So yeah, all of that's a little bit too difficult still for many people. It's a pain in the ass for those of us that know what we're doing, much less like for people that don't. And I think all of that will like escalate that growth trajectory and get us somewhere. But I don't know. People are working on those things, and accessibility is getting better and easier over time. It's just very slow.
All right, and now we have Trev on here, and he's working on Tix Money, and their mission is to drive the most value to artists, venues, organizers, and fans. I wanted to give you a little bit of a shout out, brother. Always want to encourage people that are building to come up here and give them a shout out, give them some sort of a spotlight. So I'm assuming you're working on this issue when it pertains to the overall digital asset space. This isn't just exclusive to one chain, it's the entire ecosystem. So being a builder, What are you trying to do to encourage, that individual that's over in Web2 to kind of test the waters out here in the digital asset space? And also, how you doing, man? Welcome.
Yeah, sure. I
Welcome
mean,
to the stage.
yeah. I just kind of popped in because I saw my friends in here with Steffi and Jay and Will and Ryan, and Amanda was in here at some point, but she ran away. And everybody else. I don't join these spaces very often because you know at this point it's heads down building, and that's all of it because we have to survive.
Trev, you sound
everybody's
like a fantastic candidate for the corporation. Hard work.
I have no idea what it is. I've been meaning to ask Amanda about it, but every time we're on a call, I forget to ask her about it.
Maybe you
but-
could come in as like a nice mid management role. We've got Chauncey as our janitor, so you might come in as nice mid management. It'd be good.
I thought Jay was a janitor of Yellow Boat or something at some point, or intern capital. Whatever happened to intern capital? We should revive that at some point. But
Yeah,
to the
it's corporate intern now, sir.
Yeah. To the question
legit
about
check the account. It's corporate intern. We just onboarded him.
Jeez, go get Finn. But to what Safi was talking about and what you guys were talking about in terms of usability and onboarding and getting people in, it's just like a. I talk about it a lot, or used to. I think we made our problem for ourselves by getting excited about crypto and wanting to explain what blockchain it is, 721s, 1155s, all these things. And we started explaining it and making videos, and like realistically, you don't need to know how your car runs to know that it goes from point A to point B. You just don't. You need to know that it works and that it does the thing. But the problem is we love talking about the thing because we're passionate about the thing, but nobody really needs to know, nor are we good at explaining it. Even if we know what we're talking about, we're probably pretty bad at explaining it. At least what I've run into. So part of it is just building products that have low friction. The name of the game is frictionless. And what Steffi was talking about is it's abstracting away everything. It's like they don't need to know that how the DApp works. Like you don't go to Home Depot or Home Depot doesn't say like go online to a website. We're using Cloudflare and we're using this and that and this DNS and blah blah blah. No, they say go to our website and buy the thing, right? Come to us. We sell tools, right? That's the end of it. The problem is we talk about it. So there's a lot of buzzwords that people use in marketing and branding, and it's quite you're in the same shouting match as everybody else. You're after that percentage of the market, and it's impacted because they're all trying to go after the same market share, which is limited liquidity and limited users. And people don't really understand that. They're just coming around now, to that. But it's a slow roll in terms of integrating that into like your go to market. But we're building a ticketing platform and an event ticketing platform, and like you don't need to know it's crypto. like there's events, you host events, you put events up, you buy tickets, sell tickets. Like that's the beginning of it, right? Like nobody needs to know that it's an NFT. Security and immutability of the ledger, of the public ledger, like that's a byproduct of being on the blockchain, right? Knowing a ticket is real, that's a byproduct of being on the blockchain, and then you have to iterate on that. So what Jay was talking about earlier was about projects. We build what we know, and that's done. Like insurance on chain, they just replicated regular insurance on chain. It's not different, right? I know some are trying different things, but we need to iterate and make it better. So that's the major thing. But in terms of friction, we need to lower friction down. So like anybody, your mom needs to use it. You shouldn't have to explain to her a seed phrase. So in terms of technology that exists, Taurus, formerly Taurus, now known as Web3 Auth, they do like non-custodial key management, where like you log in with like a LinkedIn or an email or something like that. I think Kepler uses it actually. When you create a Kepler, there's an option to use an email, and it is less secure maybe, but like you don't have to engrave your seed phrase on a metal bar and chopping it up into seven pieces and hide it on one piece on every continent, which someone's doing that, by the way. Somebody we all know, I think is doing that. If not more than one of us. But yeah, that complexity needs to come down, right? So stuff like that is really, really important. And then you tie that into ramps like Cado and some of the others that are out there, and you create a frictionless environment and experience, and you'll get more people in because there is no complexity. As humans, we are afraid of different things, things that are different and change. So if you make the experience as easy or easier than a Web 2 application of the same kind that you're building, the odds of you bringing in users and having high user acquisition is much higher, and the ability to penetrate the market. You're in the same market now, right? Whether you choose to be or not, as whatever the mainstream competitor is, and you can kind of tap into that market, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I just dropped, but like I think everybody in the space probably knows most of that. like I know the people that I named in this room, they know this stuff already. It's just a matter of putting it into practice. That takes time, energy, and unfortunately quite a bit of capital.
Yeah, and I think that's why ultimately why Terra V1 was one of the most used chains in all of DeFi. It was things like their DEX interfaces. It was also I know they had that gift card service, Terra gift cards. You were able to get things digitally, get things off of Amazon and what have you, all with one click of a button. You get your gift card within 24 hours. A pretty seamless experience, and it was really one of the only protocols that was like attacking the Federal Reserve. Man, I truly think they could have changed the world with what they wanted to do. Um, but ultimately, it's also what the Aptos CEO has been saying. He said a couple of weeks ago that people need a new form of sharing information digitally, and being able to share that information and economic value digitally in more efficient and fair ways is going to onboard a lot of more users, and also having interfaces set up in a way where sorry when we when we communicate with tech in the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to be interacting with things like NFT and GameFi, and the front end user is not going to be aware of those things, and that's becoming a more prevalent discussion among the dev team. So it's good to get that reaffirmation from somebody that's building within this ecosystem. So I want to thank you for taking the time out of your Monday morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and coming up to talk shop. If anyone else wants to come up, feel free to turn on that little request button, and I'll bring you. I'll bring you right up. I know the squid guy. He was raising his hand right as Jay was talking. So, Squid, if you're in the audience, feel free to turn on that little request button on the top left corner, and I'll bring you right up. I see we have coin landing page. What's up, brother? How you doing?
How you doing? Um, I just quickly wanted to say to Trev, you're building ticks on Cosmos, right?
Yeah.
Well, you might want to check the DMs of the Twitter account.
Of 6.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go take a look. We've been focused on building and not marketing or anything, so.
Yeah.
It doesn't
This
get
is
checked too often.
we're at the moment we're trying to reach out to all the teams building on the Cosmos, to see if they want to submit their info to our platform so we can like list them. That counts for any other project or person who's building anything for Cosmos in here. If you want to see our platform go public a little bit quicker, maybe reach out to whoever you know is building anything and let them know us. Like send them tell them to send us a DM so we can invite them to submit.
Cool, sounds good. I'll check the inbox.
All right. With that being said, I think we're gonna start wrapping up here. Let's get some final thoughts in. Safi, if you want to give your final thoughts, feel free to do so.
Yep. Hopefully everyone's surviving the market and like picking up some discounts on things and watching for I don't know, whatever the next big thing is. Just keep an eye. I think staying active makes sure that you don't, like buy the top or whatever. These are the days, as they say.
All right, guys. I actually have to go now and hop on a call. But with that being said, I want to thank everyone for hopping on. Feel free to check out the recording of the space in about 5 to 10 minutes after we conclude. Thank you all so much. My name is Wabi. I host these spaces almost every day. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin on our Twitter page and turn on bell notifications. And also check out our Discord. Link is in the bio. And things relating to our trading competition are in the pinned tweet. So with that being said, take care. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to join us here this evening. My name is Wabi. Take care, and God bless you. Thank you.
Have a great night.
See ya, guys.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm going to get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000. You know, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. It can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.